The town of Laurel in Yellowstone County, Montana, is known to many as a picturesque rural area with many hiking trails, campgrounds, and lakes on the outskirts, as well as a bustling, lively downtown with plenty of activity. Parades and festivals are frequent in town, and strolling through the streets is a great way to discover interesting shops and good restaurants and enjoy the friendly atmosphere of the locals. The town has a population of about 7,000, including 57-year-old Laurie Bray. Laurie worked at one of the local casinos and apparently lived a peaceful and quiet life. She preferred a secluded life, spending her days at home with only her dogs Mac and Nikki. Laurie's family was truly large. She had a son, Justin, with whom she spoke every day, 5 grandchildren, many siblings, and 8 nieces and nephews. Laurie had a great love of animals, especially dogs. She often donated money to rescue centers and organizations dedicated to finding new loving owners for dogs, and she also worked as a foster carer. Her boss and former roommate, Kathy, said Laurie was probably the sweetest, kindest, and gentlest person in the world. She said Laurie had a soft voice, a wonderful personality, and a welcoming smile. She loved to help everyone and was someone people could always turn to. Her son, Justin, said that sometimes it could be a double-edged sword and that she had too much trust in people, never seeing the bad in someone, even when they gave them reason to doubt them. September 30, 2019 was a completely ordinary day. Laurie was working the evening shift at Cedar Ridge Casino, and just before midnight she finished work, locked everything up, and went straight home. A few hours later, at 8:31 a.m. on October 1, something terrible happened. At Laurie's casino, it was noticed that the woman was already arriving very late for her shift, without prior notice that she would be late or even a no-show. At the same time, her boss, Kathy, was driving to work herself on an empty, isolated road that stretched for miles without anything but fields. Suddenly, she saw what seemed to her to be Laurie's car. It was parked at an odd angle at an intersection, and it didn't look like anyone was inside. Laurie didn't live anywhere near that area, and since there were no businesses or other houses nearby, it made no sense for her or her car to be there. Kathy stopped but didn't go near Laurie's car. Instead, she decided to call Justin. She asked him to drive to his mother's house, wondering if she was panicking about something. At the time, Kathy didn't know that Justin had also sensed something was wrong that morning. He hadn't received his usual morning call from his mother, and that seemed odd to him. Justin made his way to her house, ringing her phone along the way, but the silence was deafening. When he got there, he noticed that her car wasn't parked in front of the house, which made the knot in his stomach tighten even more. He went inside and was shocked to find that her 2 dogs, Macca and Mickey, were unattended and obviously hungry, something his mother would never allow. Looking around her house, he found nothing. Her bed was neatly made. There was no sign that Laurie had eaten breakfast this morning, and everything seemed eerily quiet. While it was certainly possible that Laurie had made the bed and washed everything before leaving, it looked more like she hadn't been home since last night. He called Kathy back, and the two agreed to check the car together. Justin immediately confirmed it was his mother's 2003 Chrysler sedan. The sunroof was open, the drivability indicator was broken, and on the floor under the rear seats, Justin found Laurie's purse, and her iPhone was also on the floor, lighting up when it received calls. Although Justin wanted to open and start the car, after a closer look, he had the feeling that this was a job for the police and no one else, so they decided to call 911. When the police arrived on the scene and examined Laurie's car, they found bloodstains covering more than half of the back seat and a muddy boot print above the passenger door. They also found Laurie's clothes scattered everywhere, including her underwear, which looked damaged, as if it had been forcibly removed. The hooks on her bra were bent, and there was blood on some of her clothing as well. Everything indicated that a brutal crime had taken place. Laurie Bray was now reported missing. A large search effort was quickly organized. Many people in the city knew her and wanted to help. Her friends began posting on social media, with one person writing, "She would never leave her dogs, it's her world and someone will know something." Even small clues will help in this case. I ask everyone to pray that she is found safe and sound. People also began organizing their own search parties, and everyone took to the streets to look for Laurell. The case immediately garnered media and public attention because it was so unusual for something like this to happen in that area. The area where her car was found was overgrown with grass and muddy, and the field seemed to stretch on forever, making it incredibly difficult to find evidence in such a place. The news immediately showed several friends, volunteers, and police officers searching the field north of Laurell, trying to find something that would lead them to Laurell Bray. It also mentioned that she was last seen Tuesday evening as she left work. Deputy David J. said in an interview, "It all happened at the intersection of Buffalo Tree Road and Laurell Airport Road near the cemetery." Relatives and friends of the missing woman, numbering 670 people, began searching the area at 10 a.m., according to Sheriff Mike Linder. Linder said they are examining the area where Laurell's car was found. "We have not been able to find any clues and do not understand why it was there, and our main concern now is to find the woman and help her." He also said that the car had already been noticed during a patrol the day before, but at that time they were unable to locate the owner and left it unattended. Police also decided to incorporate technical aspects into the investigation. They immediately began tracing Laurell's phone calls and the like, as well as executing several search warrants. Linder added that they have already searched most of the area and will now wait for new information. As night fell, the already difficult search of the premises became almost impossible, so the police asked the volunteers to leave, which they did very reluctantly. The police asked Kathy for the video footage from the casino, which she provided, along with the names of most of the people and their contact information, so the police could interview them. It turned out that on the night she was last seen, Laurell was closing the casino as usual, stocking up and cleaning up. Two women briefly approached her at the bar, and Kathy said she knew them, they were regulars. Then another man working with one of the women appeared. Kathy said his name was Diego Hernandez. Diego ordered a drink, and Laurell asked to check his ID before serving him. A few minutes later, Laurell pointed to the clock, which meant the casino was closing and he had to leave. A brief conversation ensued, after which Laurell continued her work to close the casino. At 11:20 p.m., Laurell packed her bag, locked the door, and left. The casino was already closed and her car was parked right in front of the doors. She went back briefly, apparently to talk to someone before getting into her car, but there was another person sitting in the car next to her. This person was Diego, which the police quickly determined. When he got into the passenger seat, there wasn't a soul around. Investigators needed to determine why he left with her and if he had seen or heard anything that night, such as another customer being late or acting strangely shortly before midnight on October 1. Diego Hernandez was located at his address and confirmed that he was the one seen on the cameras and that Laurell had kindly offered him a ride home after they had chatted at the casino. He said he only went to the casino because he could get free alcohol. He arrived around 9 p.m. and stayed for a few hours, using a few machines and chatting with a few people. Diego said Laurell dropped him off at his house, said goodbye, hugged her, and then went to a friend's house to continue the evening. He said he hadn't seen Laurell since she left. It was just a fleeting encounter and a kind gesture from the woman. The officers didn't believe Diego's words and couldn't help noticing his condition. His entire face was covered in fresh scratches. One officer inquired and said it looked as if someone had fought him, which seemed a little suspicious. But Diego said the scratches had occurred 2 days earlier, when he had a fight with a friend named Nick after visiting a strip club. Diego added that Nick was wearing rings and that these left the cuts when he was hit. During the interrogation, Diego appeared calm and confident. There was nothing to suggest that the man was lying in his statement. That was the end of the interrogation and the police left. The police found Nick. He admitted that they had a scuffle in his car, saying that Diego suddenly started to freak out. Nick said that at one point he grabbed Diego's head before pushing him out of the car, but he added that he didn't cause any scratches and was shocked to see the condition of his face. Nick had no reason to lie to the officers as he had already admitted to the altercation and the scratches had nothing to do with the incident. Although Nick's story overlapped with Diego's, the police had no other theory than Diego's involvement in the crime. Diego was still the last known person to have been with Laurie and by his own account was in her car. The camera from Cater's casino couldn't confirm whether he had any scratches on his face at the time, but additional footage from another bar taken just hours earlier showed that he had no scratches on his face at all. In the early morning hours of October 2, the search team deployed with renewed strength and the search continued throughout the day. At 7:30 p.m., investigators received the call they had been expecting. A man was riding his ATV in a wooded area when he made a gruesome discovery. He found the body of a woman lying naked on the ground. He didn't need to get any closer to realize she had been severely abused and was already dead. The police were certain they knew exactly who it could have been but made no statement. That same evening, the media reported that the woman's body had been found, but that the police had never confirmed the identity of the murdered woman. Although the search for Laurie Bray was called off immediately after the news broke, the public learned that numerous officers and medical examiners had been working at the scene, and the identity of the murdered woman was soon confirmed. Police found Laurie Bray's body just under 2 miles from where she had abandoned her car. She was lying completely naked and in the fetal position at the bottom of a ditch. She was covered in abrasions and bruises, had blood in her hair, swelling around both eyes, a swollen lip, and several broken ribs. It was later determined that she died by strangulation, but the coroner determined that blunt force was applied to her face. It was confirmed that Laurie had been sexually assaulted. However, despite the injuries and extensive blood loss, no semen was found. Some marks on her body suggested that she had either been dragged or pushed down the hill, but not that she had been killed there. Investigators now knew that Laurie had likely been killed in her own car and then taken there. Beside her body lay her small cross necklace, and next to it was a fairly clear boot print that appeared to match the one found in Laurie's car. The condition of Laurie's body when it was found was shocking. Officials said the level of violence and brutality was staggering and determined that whoever did this was simply a monster. Colleagues and friends were baffled as to who could have done such a thing. They said Laurie was popular with the regulars and had a good reputation in the community, and she never mentioned any problems. While police received several more potential leads when it emerged that she had been involved in abusive and controlling relationships in the past, and perhaps these men should have been investigated, Laurie's previous partners were ruled out as suspects for various reasons. Fear spread among the locals, who feared that a violent criminal could still be walking the streets of Laurel. One resident even suggested that Laurie's death could seriously impact life in this town. Nevertheless, everyone put their worries aside to come together for Laurie's family and friends and raise money to help, to care for her dogs, support Justin, and donate money for funeral expenses. Police were able to locate several locations where Laurie's phone rang between midnight and 3 a.m. Once, she called from her car while near the casino, another time from the location where her body was found, and another time near Diego's house. The calls from Diego's home and the surrounding area were made shortly before the body was found, by which time she should have already been dead. This was pretty strong evidence against Diego. Even more interesting is that Diego had been at another bar a few hours before going to the casino. He spent the evening urging random women to drive him home, including the woman working behind the bar. She refused several times, saying his pushy behavior made her very uncomfortable. On October 4, investigators executed a search warrant at Diego's apartment. They seized the clothes he had worn that evening. Some of them appeared to be bleached or freshly laundered, which was immediately noticeable since his room was full of dirty laundry. Police also found a pair of soaked Nike sneakers that had also just been washed. The print on these sneakers matched the print found in Laurie's car and next to her body. Investigators began searching Diego's phone, and it turned out that just hours after Laurie's murder, he had conducted some interesting internet searches on topics such as how long do investigations take, how long do FBI names last, and is there a deadline for a case to be considered unsolved and the search closed. Diego went to the police station, provided a DNA sample, and then changed his previous statement. He said he and Laurie spent some time together in the car, talking and having a good relationship. Afterward, they smoked a few cigarettes before having sex outside his house, but he swore he never saw her again. At that point, the police didn't have enough evidence to arrest him, so he wasn't detained and was allowed to go home. But soon all the tests were completed, and after that they were able to press charges. Diego's DNA matched the DNA found on Laurie's body and under her fingernails. Diego was subpoenaed again and changed his story one last time. He now claimed that he and Laurie had actually been in a relationship for over a year and were just keeping it secret. That's why he lied so much. He stated that Laurie had asked him to keep their relationship secret so no one would find out, and he didn't know how to explain it. However, the police examined Laurie's phone records for a period of 1 year before her death, and there was no indication that they had ever spoken. This was confirmed by the casino's cameras, which recorded Laurie asking him for his ID and talking to him, then telling him they were closing. Until that night, their phones had never been in the same locations, and they had never called each other. On October 8, 22-year-old Diego Hernandez was arrested at his home in Laurell around 8 p.m. and booked into the Yellowstone County Correctional Facility for the murder of Bray. 2 days later, he was charged with first-degree murder. This came as a real shock to everyone in the county. Diego was well-known and well-liked. He always seemed polite, friendly, and fairly quiet. His friends also said he was down-to-earth and sincere, and his actions surprised them. Police believed that, given the video recordings showing him getting into the car voluntarily and his earlier coercion, Laurie had offered to drive him home as he had originally stated, likely out of pity for him as it was already late. Outside Diego's home, he likely attempted to assault the woman, but she resisted. Laurie's strength was insufficient, and Diego carried out his intended act, beating and strangling his victim. The reason he claimed the couple had consensual sex was because he knew the police would make the connection once his DNA was taken, so he decided to change his statement. The prosecutor said the level of violence and brutality Bray faced was unimaginable. He said her death was brutal and horrific, and once more evidence was found against Diego, more charges could be filed. Diego never confessed to his actions and continued to deny harming the woman. As rumors of an arrest spread, a memorial service was held for Laurie at her favorite park where she walked her dogs. Charity events continued to be held, with all the money going to charities Laurie had once greatly helped. At one of the fundraisers, many people described Bray as a kind, loving woman who would do anything to help her friends. Some in the crowd carried a banner reading "Laurie is loved," and some wore purple t-shirts reading "We will always love you." Christy Salbinson had been Laurie's closest neighbor for 3 years. She had no idea that so many people in Bray cared about her. Christy revealed, "When I saw all of this, I realized that everyone in town knew and loved Laurie. She was a great person who was willing to sacrifice everything she had for others. Since this tragedy, our town has grown even closer, and today we are all here to light candles in Laurie's memory." Diego Hernandez pleaded not guilty, and the now 24-year-old man will go to trial in March 2021. He maintained his innocence and continued to claim that the couple had a secret relationship, which infuriated Laurie's family and friends, who considered it a blatant lie. In his opening statements, Diego's defense attorney pointed out that Laurie's abandoned car may have been disturbed or contaminated before it was searched by law enforcement, so the evidence found had to be questioned. The lawyer also stated that methadone was found in her system, for which she did not have a prescription. They hypothesized that if she took methadone and didn't tell anyone, she could have easily concealed her relationship with Diego. The prosecution considered this theory ridiculous and nonsensical. The prosecution had compelling arguments against this claim and called DNA and forensic experts as witnesses. The prosecution was able to present dozens of photographs, witness statements linking Diego to his victim, as well as physical evidence in the form of upholstery from the back seat of Laurie's car and DNA tests that showed Diego's DNA was found under her fingernails. Hernandez's lawyers attempted to undermine the DNA evidence by questioning the crime lab's procedure and pointing out that repeat tests were improperly conducted. Troy Shabana of the sheriff's office used data from Verizon Wireless to determine where Bray's phone was on the night of October 1. RTT stands for Range to Tower and is used by the carrier to connect cell towers to cell phones and determine their location. He was also able to provide evidence that the technology works. Cell phone geolocation analysis expert Michael Fegley also achieved similar results. He created a video presentation using Google Earth that also shows Bray's cell phone location on the morning of October 1. This data showed that the phone was already at the crime scene when Diego was supposedly still with Laurie. The data collected from Hernandez's phone did not contain any useful information for investigators. Shabana suspects that Hernandez's cell phone connection was lost before he contacted Bray. A list of Bray's phone records was obtained, which showed that Laurie, Bray, and Hernandez had no contact through text messages or phone calls in the year before the murder. Jurors were also shown photos of scratches on Diego's face and photos of Laurie's condition at the time of discovery. These images were too shocking for television and were never broadcast. Jurors agreed that Laurie didn't stand a chance that night. Investigators said that the DNA found in Laurie's car on her clothing and under her fingernails belonged to Diego. They also confirmed that the pants found in his home were bleached just hours after Laurie's death. There was also a clear timeline of when Diego was near the deceased. After several days of both sides presenting their arguments and only 2 hours of deliberation, the jurors reached a verdict. They unanimously found Diego guilty of premeditated murder. Before the verdict, he asked to testify himself, and events took an unexpected turn. The man who had denied everything about the violence sat there for over a year and said, "I did it. I killed Laurie." The audience was stunned, and the judge noted that in his 40-year career, he had never seen anything like it. Diego Hernandez was sentenced that day to life in prison with a minimum of 35 years to serve before he can appeal. There is no information on whether or not he intends to appeal. The case has deeply affected many people, both those who knew them well and those who had never seen them before. The residents felt a collective sense of loss. One resident said that the closeness and safety everyone had felt before the incident had changed dramatically. They had all lost someone very special. Katia said, "Laurie was just a very gentle, loving soul, and no matter what someone did, she only saw the good in people." Thank you for watching and take care of yourselves.